Hi, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here today to talk to you all a little bit about By the People, a virtual volunteering program run by the Library of Congress. It's an opportunity for anyone here or anyone else you know to engage in a meaningful interaction, to transcribe materials from our collections and help make them accessible and usable more broadly. So I'll start out here with a little overview of what By the People is. So the first thing to note is if you want to visit the program and see it, you just go to crowd.loc.gov. It's its own sort of sub-website where you can go and begin engaging in these transcription activities. We work with handwritten or printed materials that can't be automatically scanned for text. So there's a number of these things that are really valuable materials for the future and things that we want people to be able to search, but you can't search them unless someone takes the time to transcribe them. So it's a two-step process in the way that this works. Anyone, even without an account, can just show up at the website and start transcribing documents. And then if you sign up for an account, you can become a reviewer. So it works on a peer review process where we have one set of volunteers transcribes the material, and then the second set reviews those transcriptions. Ultimately, and this is one of the things that is the most exciting for our volunteers and for us, is that once that two-step process has happened with the transcription, we then take that text data and embed it back in the part of our website where you search the collections so that you can then anyone will benefit from the transcriptions that the volunteers do. So it makes the materials discoverable, and it also makes them accessible, which is really exciting too. So I'll walk through this step by step, and then I'll give some examples of the ways that our volunteers have really taken this to a whole new level. They've sort of built up and set up activities and initiatives around this, and we're really amazed and impressed by the work that they've done. And sort of in awe of the way that they contribute to our work. So first off, here we're looking at the way the transcription system works. It's kind of small up here, but if you can see it, we're looking actually at an image right there in the center that is handwritten, and then you write in the text on the side, and then you submit it for review as the next step. And so that is the process. As I mentioned, you don't need an account even to do the initial transcriptions. You just go to the website and start transcribing documents, and then you sort of hit save, and it goes to the next level where it can get reviewed. Here, we're looking at a list of the range of things that you can go today and transcribe. So again, this is illustrative in many ways of the range of things that are in the Library of Congress's collections that can be made openly available online. So right now, today, you can go and transcribe Walt Whitman's papers, the papers of President Theodore Roosevelt, Clara Barton's papers, philosopher Hannah Arendt, landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted, Civil War judge Joseph Holt, and a whole range of 16th century Spanish legal documents. And you can see that's a very wide range of things. It fits with the wide range of areas in the library's collection, but it does mean that there's something there for almost anyone. And an exciting thing to note too is there are some things coming soon that are worth staying tuned for. So the World War II Rumors Project is actually a set of materials in the American Folklife Center's collections that were collected by the Office of War Information that have, they were trying to collect the rumors people were circulating about things in World War II. And so those materials are online, but they're not searchable yet, and so you can help make them discoverable and accessible. Also, the papers of President James Garfield, and there will be even more Whitman materials coming. So once the transcriptions are finished, as I mentioned, they end up back in the library's website where you can discover and find them. And this is an example of one of our favorite items to show. It's actually Rosa Parks' recipe for pancakes. And the secret ingredient is peanut butter. So if you now search the library's website for peanut butter, you will find this recipe, right, which you would never have found otherwise. Who would know that peanut butter is the secret ingredient? But now if you're searching peanut butter in the library's collections, you'll find this. And this part really fits with the real world impact that this has, right? And this is the thing that we hear repeatedly from our volunteers, that the thing that makes this meaningful and interesting is that they're doing this work, they're deeply engaged in learning, right? So they are learning a lot by the process of participating in this, but they're genuinely giving back in an in-depth way that really helps the future of our organization. So discovery, that page level search comes through. Accessibility is an important part of this. So once transcribed, anyone with visual impairments or that needs to read text as a way to interact with it can. And it also produces data. So the resulting sets of this become computationally usable for new kinds of research, and I'll talk about that a little more later. And then it promotes a really deep kind of engagement. So I'd mentioned this a little bit already, but it's worth noting that we have volunteers who spend an enormous amount of time, reading and working through correspondence, these kinds of things. And while anyone can do that with our collections to begin with online, the invitation to do transcription really puts you in a very different kind of relationship with history and with the people and places in these historical documents. And so we hear that repeatedly as well, that the kind of experience of that in-depth engagement, that working with primary sources is really meaningful and important. And so I'll share a little bit about what I think are some quite impressive numbers. So since October of 2018, when the program launched, more than 500,000 pages have been transcribed by volunteers. That's more than 31,000 registered volunteers who have done this. And again, you don't need an account to actually transcribe. So it's a larger number than that who have actually participated. And then at this point, 130,000 of those transcriptions are now back in the library's main website where they enable search and discovery. And then the last bit there is we're also producing full text data sets. So when we do finish entirely the transcription of a set of materials, the bulk data of that gets made available online as well, which enables new kinds of ways for historians or researchers, really anyone who wants to work with the textual data to work with it. And so I'll talk a little bit about ways that you can connect with the program. So the first one is that you can do transcriptions, and you can obviously do that on your own, as I was just showing in that process. But transcribing, service, and research are the three things that I'll talk about. But I'll go a little deeper into transcription. And so we have resources on our site for how you can host a Transcribe-a-thon event. And we've seen this with a number of community colleges or public libraries where not only are you interested in doing transcription, but you can use our platform and our materials as a jumping off point to host events and explore history together. And in the two pictures, which are up on the screen, are tweets from Bergen Community College in New Jersey and Roosevelt High School in Kent, Ohio, both of which hosted events like this and had great responses from their communities. So they have resources that support that online as well. Another big area that we've seen our volunteers innovate and become creative with is service learning. So particularly during the pandemic, their students were looking for opportunities to get service learning, but in a virtual way, to sort of give back and get that documented. And a thing that's nice about the way the platform is designed is that we have the ability for any user to generate a service letter that documents how much transcription you've done, the outputs of your work. And so students can go in and do that for themselves. And in many cases, we've seen groups spin up where students will work on this together and collaborate. A particularly great one, the image that's up here from Youngstown State University, a student there actually created a transcription club, and together students did over 2,000 hours since 2020 of service learning, and have worked through 20,000 pages just with that group, and have gone on to present about that at conferences and do it as part of their honors college. So there's really, I think, a key message with this is the partnership and opportunity for volunteering that this presents extends itself in almost any number of ways that people can take this and run with it, and they have. And we're really excited to see the ways that people continue to create new and interesting ways to engage with communities, building on our collections and through this platform. The other area to mention in this case is research. So as noted, once the transcriptions are completed, they become part of the collections. So if you do go to look at the Library of Congress's website, there's a facet on the side that says online text, and you can facet down and see exactly where those transcripts have gone back to. And then you can also download the full text data sets of these. So at this point, the image up here on the screen shows several of them, like the Rosa Parks papers, or another really fun set of papers was Branch Rickey's scouting reports, so baseball scout reports. And we've had a number of different groups download those and search through them for names or look at all kinds of other information that comes through those baseball scouting reports. And so that is an overview and a run through of these things. And in great news, we've got plenty of time for questions. And so I'm pulling up here the background info. You can find us online at crowd_LOC on Twitter. And you can also get our newsletter and just send emails to the team behind it at crowd@loc.gov as well. And so we have a lot of time for questions, so I'm happy to take them. Yeah, oh, and if you are asking a question, I would ask that you come up to a microphone. If you have any mobility issues, we can have someone bring you a microphone too. But I see one person coming up, and then there was a hand over here if you want to come up to the microphone, or if you want to wave for someone to bring it over to you too.
Hi, I'm just curious, for instance, with the peanut butter, if what was actually written was PB, does somebody insert so that it becomes searchable? Do you put in square brackets peanut butter? And if somebody uses a nickname, do they put in the actual name in square brackets? What's the process for that?
This is, thank you so much. This is a good nuanced question. We ask volunteers to transcribe what is literally on the page, and so the actual text as it appears. Users can actually add tags if they want to, if there's other information to add in from that, but it would be to transcribe literally what's there in the same, and not do further interpretation. Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit more about the reviewers, how many there are for each document, what they do, how they do it?
Sure. So the review process is anyone who registers for an account can become a reviewer. And when you, once you become a reviewer, you have the ability to confirm that the transcripts are accurate. And so it could be anyone and everyone. But there are also a number of people who are really dedicated to the quality of these materials, and we'll go back and check other people's things, and in some cases, open things up again to get retranscribed. So there's sort of a very basic level of transcription review that happens, and then there's a number of really dedicated volunteers that go back and check and recheck other sets of materials too. Great question. Yeah.
So I have to use dictation software. Is it possible to use that? Because I can use it in Word and everything. Would that be a problem?
Yeah, so it's just a text box that you write into, and so anything that if you can click in and just talk into it, it should work just fine.
Excellent. And then a second question: are you able to choose what you want to transcribe?
Yes, exactly. So when you go to crowd.loc.gov, you'll see the current campaigns that are open, and you can sort of scroll through them and pick, and then you can see the different parts of them and choose from there. There's also just a Start Now button that will jump you to a document, but you've got the option either way.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions? Oh, yep, we got a question up here.
I actually have a question. Are you finding that it's more difficult for younger people to read cursive handwriting?
This is a great question, and this is, I think, a really interesting example about what is exciting about one of the reasons that educators have really taken to the platform is, particularly for people that want to study history, it's really important to learn how to read. It gets called paleography in some contexts too, but the ability to read cursive, and especially older forms of cursive, is complex and challenging. But I think in good news, there's some resources we have up on the website too that are sort of base level how to do some reading and analysis of these kinds of materials. But it is itself a thing that people have been going to as a place to learn and explore how to do that, particularly because if you are going to do historical research, you are going to need to be able to read various kinds of script.
I was wondering if you had collections that require special expertise, scientific knowledge, languages, and how do you deal with that?
No, so we in terms of the special expertise and knowledge, the premise right now really is to transcribe literally what's written there. And so whether or not you understand the nuances in the language or things like that, you can do well. But interestingly, we've found a number of situations in which there, say, will be German letters in Letters to Lincoln, which was one of our campaigns. And you get a large collection, you might not even know all the languages that may show up in it until people are engaging in transcription. And so, interestingly, as people have worked through in volunteering, those materials, the ones that stick around the longest tend to be the ones that are really the hardest. But it's been an interesting example where we've then been able to ask expert reference librarians who might know someone who would be an expert in that language or something like that that could help finish a transcription off in those cases too. Because the collections are vast and there are any number of things you might not fully expect that will show up in them. We got a question on this side.
What are some of the campaigns that have generated the most enthusiasm among volunteers so far?
Sure. So the Rosa Parks papers early on were a huge success. Went really fast. As you can imagine, it's a really amazing part of history to be a part of. Along with that, one of the things that plays into it is how much there is to do. So we've had some very small sets of materials. There was one that was basically a campaign of receipts from George Washington that was done over a weekend. Even though those were very challenging documents to do, it was a relatively small set of them. But an interesting one that's had a lot of activity is early copyright title pages for books. So a collection that is in the rare book collection of the Library of Congress is the front pages of books that were kept as part of sets as documentation of copyright before the Copyright Office was in effect. And those are interesting in that they, in some cases, those are the only copies of some of those early books or records of their existence that may exist. And so that has had a really high level of volunteer engagement. But I think the biggest thing I'd note there is that every set of these materials has its audience and its community, and so there is, a set of people that are very excited about President Garfield's papers coming in, and Letters to Lincoln was a big hit and success, but they all have, I think, their own different communities and points of interest. Any other questions? These were all fantastic questions, though, so if anybody is on the fence about asking a question, don't hesitate. All right, well, thank you all so much. And I think we can wrap this up then, and I will stick around if people have any other questions. Thank you all so much.